Mr. Speaker, I'm, as you can see on the board, one of those few who is voting against this. I can tell you that my opposition has nothing to do with whether we should fund schools or not, but of course that's what will end up being said, is that somehow I'm against K-12 education. There's nothing further from the truth, but my concern is with the policy. And so I'm not going to talk about what might happen in the future. Unlike most of my colleagues, I'm actually going to talk about this bill and this bill alone. The policy that's in this bill. 18 years ago, when this was an initiative, I went out into the community and I explained to my community what I thought that this particular policy did. And they were amazed when I explained to them that there were 10 buckets. And the buckets were funded in order, and they were funded fully in order. And if the buckets at the end there wasn't enough money, they didn't get any money, or they received a reduced amount. They were surprised by that. I think most people don't know that, and yet that's what we're continuing. And we have 10 buckets, and guess what? The Classroom Site Fund, which gives the 20% base pay and the 40% that goes to performance pay and 40% that can go to teacher compensation, is the last bucket on the list. Now, I hear my colleagues talk about we ought to close loopholes. Okay, let's start with the income tax credit that has absolutely nothing to do with education, that's $25 million. So if we close that loophole, but apparently the colleagues who want to close loopholes don't want to close that one for some reason. So let's close loopholes. Let's close this one, $25 million. There are other policies in here. I continue to hear that we need to get more money to teachers, more money to teachers, more money to teachers, and yet the only piece that addresses teachers, again, is at the very end, and we're talking about $384 million out of the 667. So I think that the policy here is bad policy. Do I think we need to continue funding at this level? Yes, absolutely. I am in favor of that. I am not in favor of this. I don't know how I can vote for a tax continuation or a new tax, however you want to categorize it. I'm sure that will be the subject of many conversations as people jockey to distort records in the next election cycle. But however you want to characterize it, I don't know how to vote for it when I don't agree with the policy. So, Mr. Speaker, I would prefer that we actually address the policy in here. We actually address the K-12 because again, the piece that everybody seems to be clamoring for is number 10 on the 10 list, on the 10 buckets. And I think that we are kidding. As I said 18 years ago, we are fooling the voters. It is disingenuous in the presentation, and I think right now we are intellectually not advocating for what I would consider to be honest policy. So, Mr. Speaker, with that said, I hope that this can be fixed. I hope that we can address the issue. And I hope that we can maintain funding, and we can always have the debate on additional funding or whatever we're going to discuss in the future. That's not in this bill. But, Mr. Speaker, for that reason, because the policy is something that I have not supported for the last 18 years, I don't support it now. I think we need to have a redirection and make K-12 the priority here rather than essentially the afterthought. For that reason, Mr. Speaker, on this policy, on this day, in this bill, I have to vote no.